Forget about Dimensional Barrier. If you resolve this card right here, especially against Tempai, you're not losing. The duel is over right there. You know what? You'll see what I mean. Cue the intro. Welcome, trainers, duelists, and card game enthusiasts. My name is Alex, and this is Aurachalcos. Today, I'll be showing you my Fiendsmith Azamina Snake Eyes deck that went undefeated and earned me second place in a box tournament this week. Now, I say undefeated because during round 2, I tied with the other duelist who got first place, and we both went on to win the rest of our matches. Second place is just where the tiebreakers got me. Now, something else you'll notice as we go through this deck profile is that there are no copies of Molcharmi Fubulos, no copies of Dominus Impulse to be found. But, if my record speaks for itself, you don't need those cards to win. And you don't have to spend $600 just to be able to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Alright, without further ado, let's unleash the seal on this deck profile. To start off with the main deck, we have 3 copies of Diabellstar, the Black Witch, pretty standard. 1 copy of Ash, 1 copy of Poplar, and 1 copy of Oak. I never really needed the second copy of Oak, but it would have been nice to have if I could increase the deck count a little bit. I played 1 copy of Snake Eyes Diabellstar, 1 copy of Flamberge. I always drew this card. Sucks, but you know, it is Yu-Gi-Oh! 3 copies of Bonfire. You need to find those starter cards. 3 copies of Wanted, 1 copy of OSS, 1 copy of the Field Spell, and then onto the Azamina cards, we have 1 copy of the Hallowed Azamina. It's pretty standard also. 3 copies of Deception. A lot of people are playing 2 or even 1 in certain builds, but because this is basically a pure Snake Eyes deck, you do need 3 copies of it. For my other engines in the deck, I played 2 copies of Kashtira Fenrir, 2 copies of Kashtira Unicorn, and 1 copy of Kashtira Birth. These cards help give you additional pressure and insulate against hand traps, as well as helping you play through cards like Dimension Shifter. For the Fiendsmith cards, we actually only play 1 copy of Lacrima and 1 copy of Engraver. It does suck to draw the Engraver. Lacrima is a decent normal summon if you see her by herself, but altogether you'll see why we play these cards when we get to the extra deck. Then on to hand traps, we play 2 copies of Droll and Lockbird, and this is to help stop Fulos and other cards in case they do play it, but if not, we have contingency plans. Then we have 2 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. This helps in the mirror match as well as against Tempai in their Field Spell and other decks that need their cards to stay face up to resolve. We have 2 copies of Nibiru, good against the mirror match, other fire decks, things that summon a lot and can't insulate. 3 copies of Veiler, if you see it with the Nibiru, it's very, very good. 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Again, we're trying to stop those Fulos and those Perulia running around. And then lastly, we have 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, and that will round off our deck, I believe, at 42 cards. Alright, on to the extra deck. To start us off, we have our copy of Moon of the Closed Heaven, 1 copy of Requiem, 1 copy of Sequence, and to go with those cards, we have our 1 copy of Desiree. Since we cut the other Fiendsmith cards from the extra deck, we only need the 1 Lacrima and the 1 Engraver in the main deck. Alright, then we play 1 copy of Anima, 1 copy of Phoenix, 1 copy of Hida, and 1 copy of Dark. These are all just kind of linked to good stuff cards. Phoenix is a fire to help you get out of the fire lock, so is Hida, but these 2 also serve a purpose in pulling stuff from your opponent's grave in simplified game states. Then we have IP Masquerena, pretty standard for Snake Eyes decks. SP Little Knight, also pretty standard for Snake Eye decks. Then we have our Promethean Princess, the go-to extra deck play. And then I do not have a Raging Phoenix, so I am playing Ambler Whale. It works pretty good, gives you an extra pop, lets you revive the IP Masquerena or the SP or something if someone gets rid of it. And then to go with that sneaky little card that we saw in the beginning of the deck profile, all the way before the intro, we have Lyrilisk Assembled Nightingale. Fucho works very well in this spot as well, but I like this card because it can attack, so it also helps in time. And you can use it twice instead of once with Fucho. All right, and then for the Azamina cards, we have one copy of Sylvia, and then one copy of Moo, and I don't know how to say the second part, so I'm not going to bother. But the Searcher and the Omni Negate. All right, that's 15 extra deck cards. Onto the side deck. In our side deck, we have 2 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust. This helps us see some of the other side deck cards and helps clear up some space so you can play 1-ofs instead of 3-ofs. 1 copy of Talents, takes a card, draw 2, shuffle back, very good. 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 copy of Regeki, 2 copies of Deck Lockdown. Going first, you side out your copies of Droll and Lockbird and side these in. 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone because we don't like back row decks. It also helps against Centurion and against stun decks as well. And then we have Dimensional Barrier at 2 copies. Typically you'd play 3. We play 2 because we do want to see it as much as possible without the Thrust getting Ash Blossomed. 1 copy of Anti-Spell Fragrance, 1 copy of Skill Drain, and 1 copy of There Can Be Only One. And to round out the side deck, we have the infamous tech card, Harpy's Feather Storm. The idea with this card is that if you see Thrust and you get Fulos or you get just Hand Trap to Oblivion, you Thrust, you get this, you make the extra deck monster Assembled Nightingale so that you can't die, and then you have this to activate. This, your opponent cannot use monster, or it negates all the monster effects, and then this prevents you from dying. So you're going to at least live a turn, and your opponent's going to have a really hard time setting up a board so that next turn you're able to use what resources you have left to win the game. Alright everybody, that's going to round it out for this deck profile. Remember, stay sharp, stay legendary, and I'll catch you in the next one.